The metallic midnight blue paint of the Escalade sparkled under the streetlights, a cruel, mocking glitter that nearly blinded me as it screeched around the corner. I stood frozen on the hospital steps, the cold air biting at my cheeks, clutching a jar of homemade elderberry preserves that felt like a lead weight in my hand. Inside those glass walls behind me, my daughter in law Vada was tangled in tubes, her lungs rattling with every shallow breath she managed to steal from the ventilator. But out there on the pavement, my son Sterling was behind the wheel of the luxury SUV I'd bought him, laughing so hard his head was thrown back, his throat bared to the night sky. He wasn't alone. Two young women I'd never seen before were leaning out the windows, their hair whipping in the wind as they shrieked with a delight that sounded like nails on a chalkboard to my grieving heart. The bass from the car's speakers thudded against the hospital windows, vibrating in my very marrow. Sterling didn't even glance toward the third floor where his wife lay dying. He just floored the accelerator, the smell of burnt rubber and expensive cologne lingering in his wake. My phone vibrated in my coat pocket, a sharp, intrusive buzz. I pulled it out with trembling fingers and saw a text message from him, sent just seconds ago. "Hey, Ma, can't talk. I'm at the hospital with Vada right now. It's really serious. The doctors are fighting for her, and I haven't left her side. Please pray for us." I stared at the glowing screen, the letters blurring as the cold heat of a mother's betrayal began to boil in my chest. He was less than a block away, racing toward a nightclub with strangers, while telling me he was holding his wife's hand. In that moment, the patient string that had held my blind motherly love together for 35 years didn't just fray, it snapped with a sound only a mother can hear. I didn't scream. I didn't call him. I looked at the hospital doors, then back at the empty street where my son had just proven he was a monster. I pulled up my contacts and dialed 3 digits I never thought I'd use against my own flesh and blood. 911. My voice was as steady as the Chicago winter as I spoke to the dispatcher. "I want to report a stolen vehicle, a blue Escalade. I am the owner, and an unauthorized male is behind the wheel." I wasn't just reporting a car. I was beginning the quiet, methodical process of reclaiming a life he tried to destroy. Tomorrow, I'd be calling my lawyer. Some changes needed to be made, very quietly. You know that feeling, don't you? That heavy, icy knot that forms beneath your ribs when you realize the person you'd lay down your life for wouldn't even walk across the street to save yours. I sat in that hospital waiting room, the smell of bleach and old coffee clinging to my skin, and I felt older than I ever had. My mind drifted back to the airport only a few hours ago. I had flown down from Chicago without a word, driven by a nagging intuition that wouldn't let me sleep. They say a mother's heart is an early warning system, and mine had been screaming for weeks. Sterling hadn't answered my calls in 3 days, and Vada, sweet, quiet Vada, had dropped off the map entirely. I remembered walking into their condo, the one I'd bought them 3 years ago to give them the head start I never had. I'd walked in with those jars of preserves and a teddy bear, expecting a hug. Instead, I found a tomb. The air was stale, smelling of sour wine and a mountain of unpaid bills, but it was the little box of heart medication on the counter that broke me. It was covered in dust. Vada's meds. She hadn't touched them in weeks. When the neighbor told me the ambulance had taken her out on a stretcher while Sterling was out on the town, I felt a piece of my soul wither. Have you ever looked around a room and realized everything you thought was a blessing was actually a weapon used against someone you love? I sat there for hours watching the nurses move like white ghosts through the halls. Every 90 minutes or so, a doctor would come out, his eyes tired, giving me updates that sounded like a death sentence. Bilateral pneumonia, dehydration, dystrophy. He told me she'd been lying on the floor for 5 days with a 104-degree fever before the neighbors heard her fall. 5 days. Sterling had been in and out of that house, stepping over his sick wife to get to his car keys, and he hadn't even called for help. He'd turned off the heat, too, to save money for his investments, the neighbor said. I looked at my hands, the skin thin and spotted with age, and I realized I had been the one funding this nightmare. My monthly checks, my gifts, my support, all of it had been fuel for his cruelty. By the time the sun started to peek through the hospital blinds, my lawyer, Odora, had already drafted the first set of papers. Odora has been my friend for 40 years. She knew better than to ask me if I was sure. She heard the steel in my voice and stayed up all night working. When she met me in the lobby, she handed me a folder. Oilia, she whispered, her hand resting on my shoulder. This is the deed of gift. If you sign this, the condo goes entirely to Vada. Sterling will have no legal right to step foot inside. Are you ready for the war this will start? I didn't hesitate. I signed my name with a heavy, sweeping stroke. Oilia Vance. I felt a strange sense of liberation, like I was finally cutting a rotten branch off a tree to save the trunk. I wasn't just changing a deed. I was rewriting the end of a story that should have been about love, but had turned into a chronicle of survival. Have you ever had to be the judge and the executioner for your own child? It is a weight that bows your back, but it is better than the weight of being a silent witness to his sins. As I sat back down, my phone lit up. An unknown number from the county jail. I let it ring. Then I let it ring again. I knew it was Sterling, finally realizing that the stolen car wasn't a misunderstanding. I imagined him in that holding cell, his designer shirt wrinkled, his charm useless against a set of iron bars. He probably thought his mama was rushing down with bail money and an apology. He didn't know that his mama was currently sitting by the bed of the woman he'd tried to freeze to death, holding her limp, feverish hand. Vada's fingers were so thin like bird bones. I whispered to her, telling her about the flowers in Chicago, about how the lake looks in the morning, anything to fill the silence so death wouldn't find a way in. Suddenly her eyelids fluttered. It was the first time she'd shown any sign of coming back to us. I leaned in close, my heart thudding against my ribs. Her lips moved dry and cracked. Don't let him in, she rasped, her voice a ghost of itself. He turned off the heat, Mama. It's so cold. The monitor beside her bed began to beep frantically. Her pulse was spiking just at the thought of him. I leaned over, stroking her hair, my tears finally breaking free and falling onto her pillow. He's never coming back, baby girl, I promised her. The locks are being changed as we speak. You are safe. I've got you. It's funny, isn't it? We spend our whole lives trying to keep our children safe from the world, only to realize sometimes the world needs to be kept safe from our children. I spent the next 48 hours in a blur of legal meetings and hospital shifts. I found out Sterling hadn't just been neglecting the bills. He'd been forging my signature on loan documents, trying to mortgage the condo to pay off gambling debts. He'd seen Vada's illness not as a tragedy, but as a convenience, a way to get her out of the way so he could sell the roof over her head. My rage had moved past the boiling point. It was now a cold, hard diamond. I sold the Escalade back to the dealership that afternoon. I didn't care about the loss in value. Every penny of that money went directly into a trust fund for Vada's recovery. I wanted Sterling to feel the vacuum he'd created. I wanted him to walk out of that jail and realize the world he'd built on my dime had simply evaporated. When he finally walked into the hospital lobby 2 days later, he looked pathetic. He was limping, his hair a bird's nest, his arrogance replaced by a frantic, wild-eyed desperation. He saw me sitting in the corner and stomped over, his face twisting into that old manipulative pout he'd used since he was 5. Mama, what the hell is going on? They took my car? I spent 48 hours in a tank with criminals. You have to fix this. I didn't stand up. I didn't even look up from the book I was pretending to read. You smell like a jail cell, Sterling. Go take a shower before you address me. He recoiled like I'd slapped him. Mama, are you listening to me? I could have been killed in there. And the bank called. They said my cards are declined. My own mother reported her son for theft. Do you know how embarrassing that is? I finally raised my eyes to his. The man standing before me had my eyes and my late husband's smile, but there was nothing of us in him. You know what's embarrassing, Sterling? Watching your wife's heart monitor flatline because you were too busy buying drinks for tramps to pay the gas bill. You know what's embarrassing? Sending a pray for us text while you're speeding past the ICU in a car you didn't earn. His face went through a dozen colors: red, white, a sickly gray. Vada, she's fine, Ma. She's always been weak. She's probably faking half of it for attention. I stood up then. I'm a small woman, but in that moment I felt 10 feet tall. She isn't faking the bilateral pneumonia, Sterling, and she isn't faking the restraining order that was just served to your lawyer. You are no longer her husband in the eyes of this family, and you are no longer my son in the eyes of my will. I handed him a single sheet of paper. It was a copy of my new will. I'd left everything: the Chicago house, the investments, the business, to an animal shelter and Vada's medical trust. He looked at the paper, his hand shaking. You can't do this. I'm your only heir. You're an old woman, Ma. You're losing your mind. I'll contest this. I'll have you declared incompetent. I smiled, a cold, thin thing. I had a psychiatric evaluation this morning, Sterling. Purely for the records, I'm as sharp as a tack. But you're just a man with no car, no home, and a very long list of debts that Sergio and his friends are going to be looking to collect very soon. The mention of Sergio, his bookie, made the last of his bravado crumble. He fell to his knees right there in the hospital lobby, clutching at the hem of my coat. Mama, please, they'll kill me. I owe them 60,000. Just give me the money and I'll leave. I'll go to California. You'll never see me again. Please, I'm your blood. I looked down at him, and for a split second I saw the toddler who used to cry when he scraped his knee, but then I remembered Vada's raspy voice saying, "He turned off the heat." I gently unhooked his fingers from my coat. "I already gave you 35 years of chances, Sterling. I'm all out. You wanted to be a big man? Go be one, but you'll be doing it on your own feet, not on my back." I walked away, the sound of his sobbing echoing through the sterile hallway. I didn't look back, not once. I went upstairs to Vada's room. She was sitting up, a little color finally returning to her cheeks. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine, looking for the anger she expected. I just sat down and handed her a cinnamon bun from the bakery downstairs. "It's a beautiful day, isn't it, honey?" I asked. She took a small bite, the first real food she'd had in a week. "Mama Oilia?" she whispered. "Why did you stay? You could have just gone back to Chicago. It's so much work fixing all this." I took her hand, the skin finally feeling warm again. "Because a mother's work isn't finished until the house is safe, Vada. And you're the only child I have left. It's been 6 months since that day. I moved down here permanently. We sold the old condo and bought a little house with a big garden and a porch that faces the sunset. Vada is working back at the library now, her laugh echoing through the halls like it was always meant to. Every now and then I see a man who looks like Sterling working at the car wash near the grocery store. He's thin, his skin weathered by the sun, scrubbing the tires of cars he used to think he was too good to drive. I don't stop. I don't wave. I just keep driving, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. I learned that choosing peace isn't about giving up. It's about finally choosing yourself. Every mother gives pieces of herself away, day by day, year by year, until sometimes there's nothing left but a hollow shell. But we have to leave something for ourselves, don't we? We have to be the guardians of our own souls. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever had to make that impossible choice between family obligation and your own sanity, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. We carry so much in silence, and sometimes just knowing another woman has walked that fire makes the burden a little lighter. Have you ever had to find your strength in the middle of a betrayal? Lord, it's a long road, isn't it? But looking at Vada now, painting in the garden with the sun on her face, I know I'd walk it all over again. I lost a son, it's true, but I found my dignity, and I found a daughter who loves me for who I am, not for what I can give her. Remember, darling, it's never too late to come home to yourself. You are the author of your own ending, and you don't have to let anyone else hold the pen. I'm going to go help Vada with the roses now. The weather is perfect, and for the first time in a very long time, the house is warm. Thank you for listening to an old woman's heart. It means more than you know. Sleep well tonight and remember that you are stronger than the storms they try to blow your way. With all my love and respect, goodbye for now.